WMPG is on the air thanks to donations from our listeners and through grant support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The CPB promotes the growth and development of public media in communities throughout America. Online at cpb.org. All righty. Well, as you can hear, we got the windows open here, and they're doing the last of the weed whacking. Thank you, USM Weed Whacking Department, for taking care of that. The weather. Well, the weather. It says showers likely today. The sun is going to make it appear. Well, let me put it this way. The clouds are going to abate around 8 or 9 o'clock. Sunset's around 4:24 today. And the temperature for a high, well, we're at it right now. It's right about 47 degrees here in Portland town. Tomorrow, beautiful blue sky day, temperature 46 for a high, 39 for a low. Sunday, 50 for a high, 36 for a low. And a few aesthetically pleasing clouds popping by. All right, well, let's get ready for Nonprofit Insider.
Driving, music's blaring in my ears. Engines roaring, the horizon's drawing near. Pedal to the floor, no more feet in the door. Gonna drive right out of this bitter night. I'm a constant seeker in Converse sneakers, always chasing.
Welcome to Nonprofit Insider. My name is David Unger, and I'm pleased to be hosting a show with executive directors and key people of local nonprofits. I've worked in the nonprofit world for over 30 years. In those years, I've realized that the majority of the community does not know about the organizations that provide critical services and benefits to our community we sometimes take for granted. This is a chance to hear about the organizations that touch so many in our community. The opinions expressed in Nonprofit Insider are not necessarily those of WMPG, its staff and underwriters, or of USM. Just so our listeners understand, we are really thankful this is not television today. We've had a bunch of technical errors. We're sharing microphones, so if things seem a little out of whack, I apologize for that. But that's what it is today. And usually we have our trivia question in the middle of the show, but I have a special trivia question today. And this is for our call-ins, so if anybody knows the answer, please call in, and we'll figure out some prize to give you if you get the answer right. But how many vinyl LPs can fit in a small U-Haul box? I know, that one's going to be tough. And the reason that's an important trivia question today is because tomorrow is our record sale at Sullivan Gym, so please come by and you can count to make sure we got the answers right. So let's get on with the serious stuff, if we ever do any serious stuff around here. Today we have Dennis King, president of the Maine Behavioral Health Care, and Ann Pringle, who is are you still a trustee?
As of yesterday, I'm retired as a trustee, but close enough.
So why'd we bring you on the show?
My swan song.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So,
Great to be here.
Dennis, Maine Behavioral Health Care. What is it, and how would you describe it?
It's quite a mouthful, isn't it?
It is.
Maine Behavioral Health Care has been in existence since April 1st of this year. And it is, in fact, the amalgamation of 4 community mental health agencies and Spring Harbor Hospital.
Okay.
And this occurred, as I said, officially, I guess, on March 31st. We don't like to talk about April 1st. We decided, along with some soul searching done by the boards of directors and trustees of these organizations, that the world was going to be a bit more to our advantage if we looked at things in a coordinated fashion, much more closely than we did as 5 separate agencies.
Okay.
And that way we could form a seamless continuum for what has been a very, very disjointed system for many people who use it. And disjointed, siloed, however you want to call it. And we think, and I think we're out to establish the fact that by working together much more closely, we can achieve better things for the people we serve.
There's a lot of movement in the nonprofit world that takes consolidations, mergers, and things like that for a lot of different reasons, some good, better, and some are just, for ease of things. Have you found the transition smooth?
Oh gosh, no. Oh gosh, no. I'm sure Ann can talk about it. It's one of these things that any time that you're blending cultures with two organizations, it's
Hard enough.
Hard enough,
Right.
and now
But
we've got five. We're fortunate to have very engaged, very talented people, and we can really use and trade off benefits and trade off talents. But it's tough, isn't it, Ann?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were on the board while all this was going on?
I actually chaired
Yeah.
the board committee's board leadership that came together and made the recommendation. And one of the things I want to say is that I learned at a Maine Health Educational Forum years ago that trustees should ask themselves, are we stewards of a community asset, an organization, or are we stewards of a community service? And so I asked at every single meeting of the board leadership, the chair and vice chair.
Help me out here. Define what is the steward of community leadership and steward of community asset.
Okay. So a community asset is an organization. So if my purpose in life as a trustee is to defend Spring Harbor Hospital as an institution and not question it, are you serving the community well is my job, not to say, be the apologist for the hospital or an organization. It's to ask, how well are we serving the community?
Okay. So
So-
that makes a lot of sense. So
Right.
you had to bring all these boards and key
Right.
leadership together to do this.
Yeah, we had 8 meetings of the chair and vice chair. I think everybody attended every single meeting, and they were 2.5-hour meetings. Everybody was totally engaged in asking this fundamental question and then looking at, as we were currently structured with organizations, some of them more than 100 years old, with a
Yeah.
Right.
long history in the community. Was this the best way to structure ourselves to provide service to the people in the community? And one of the things we looked at, it was brought forward by staff, was a big, long, wall-sized
Newsprint.
analysis
Newsprint.
of newsprint of one client who dealt with multiple elements of our organization multiple times, had, I think, something like 15 different diagnoses, intakes. I mean, the
In a
poor
year
woman.
and a half. In a year and a
Yeah.
half.
Wow.
And we said, obviously that is a service failure,
Right.
which we weren't even aware of until we put this thing together. And we
The chart was 15 feet long.
yeah.
So when we talk about clients and the number of people served, under the new consolidation, let's say, how many people are you serving now in the community?
We have in total last year we served about 20,000 different individuals across geography that stretches from Belfast to Kittery. So we've had in a number of programs, including residential, inpatient care at Spring Harbor Hospital, or we also manage inpatient services at Southern Maine Healthcare, as well as Maine Medical Center, P6, and outpatient facilities as well for those organizations. So it's we cover quite a depth and breadth. Of
So we have 28 different locations and
Yes, we do.
30 plus programs. So you can see what a big and complex organization this is.
Right.
Wow. So, Dennis, I'm going to let you explain this because you could probably do this better than anybody. Even though Ann's not a trustee and we shouldn't be talking to her right now. What happened to her in October?
What happened to?
Ann in October?
So we had a change in board.
No. Didn't,
Ann in October. Oh, you mean the thing with
the little thing.
celebration thing?
Yeah.
You-
I don't know. I can't remember.
The award.
No, we were so pleased to have Ann honored by the
WCSH
WCSH
6.
Six Who Care. I was
Yeah,
thinking Six Who
yeah.
Care, and so it was wonderful to see her get the award there. And
And it wasn't just the award.
no, it was the help me out.
The Mary Ryan
Mary
Thompson.
Ryan Thompson Award.
Right.
And the, I don't seek recognition for what I do in the community, but what was really touching to me is I was nominated by 2 friends of mine who were living with mental illness that I've worked with over the
She's
last
helped.
couple of years and helped sustain their recovery and their mental health. So that was really touching. They got letters from other people, and
Wow.
and I knew Mary
That-
Ryan Thompson, so
Yes,
that was
right, I
another.
did too.
Yeah,
That is great stuff. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah,
So-
I think the important point here is that Ann not only walks the walk, but she talks the talk as well in terms of working directly with people who have needs.
Uh-huh.
So she's a trustee at a high level, and and works on all the policy stuff, but she also values individual contacts. That's a big deal.
It is, because one of our guests on one of the previous shows, we began talking about the role of the volunteer and how that's changed and evolved over the last couple years. Have you seen that change happen?
I think I've been on many, many boards over the years, and I think because our whole society is becoming more complex, trustees have to dig in more and understand more, probe management more, ask the questions they should be getting good answers to, and I'm seeing that. Certainly,
Yes.
this board that I've been on for 15 years or so is the most engaged board I've ever seen.
Well, you have a really. I looked at your board list, and I've worked with many of your board members over
Yeah.
the years, and you have a very impressive group
Yeah,
of people
right.
who. And they're all, most of them, the ones that I know, are roll up your sleeves and we're
Yes.
going to do
Oh
this.
yeah,
Right.
oh yeah, they're really great that way.
But they know the distinction between the management and board, and they know the roles. So,
Right.
they know that our role is to question and get good answers. And one of the things that's been a hallmark to me of the relationship with staff is that whenever I've asked a hard question, I always get an answer back, yes, we thought about that. Here's how we processed it. What do you think?
Right.
Back to me. And I always agreed with the way they ended up.
And that's key. That one of the things that I find as a consultant is that sometimes there isn't that trust in that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Where it's more the board and the staff and the management team need to be more of a partner in the
Absolutely,
process
yeah.
versus
Yep.
just do what I say.
Yeah, and there's never resentment for the questions. Rarely they'll say, well, actually, we never thought about that. Let's go back and take a look at that.
Right,
And-
but
and
if they
that's-
do, that's good
Yeah.
because
No, it
that
is.
means that the checks and
Yeah.
balances
Right.
is working.
It's working.
So, how many, when you talked about you were volunteering with the actual clients and things like that, how many volunteers are involved in the organization overall?
In terms of the board membership,
No. I mean, do you have volunteers who?
we do in various programs. Gosh, I couldn't give you a figure of how many separate individuals are involved, but there's a number. It's more than 30, more than 40 maybe.
And I didn't do this as part of a volunteer program. These are just people I met through
Right.
various things I do in the community, and they
Right.
just happen to have mental illness.
Now, your organization is probably one of the largest organizations that we've brought onto the show so far. We've been focusing on a small grassroots type thing.
Yes.
Do you think some of the issues that you face of managing a nonprofit are the same as some of the smaller ones that would face?
Yeah, I think so. We have the good fortune, I think, of having scale in our favor, so that typically that enables you to do things in a much more broad-based way in terms of developing information systems, for example, that typically have a lot of capital investment needs, things of that nature. But I come from a small nonprofit, as we were talking about before the show, from MR background, mental retardation background, with Association of Retarded Citizens way back then when it was called that. So I can relate to what you're talking about. And a large organization isn't for everyone.
Right.
And it doesn't take only large organizations to do great work. I mean, we deal a lot with organizations that have wonderful partnerships with people, smaller groups.
So,
I was just going to say the one thing that's similar, regardless of size, is the dynamic tension between what your mission is and how you work towards your mission and financial viability.
Right.
Because whether you're a small organization, and I'm the president of the Friends of Deering Oaks, which has a budget of less than $10,000.
Right.
But, so that's something we constantly struggle with, as does this size organization.
Absolutely. And I want to come back to that in a second, but we do have to do our midpoint identifier, and this is where the real trivia question comes in. Every week I ask our guests trivia questions. Sometimes it's related to what they're doing, and sometimes it's not. And today it is. So this one is multiple choice. Okay. And I ask the question, we'll go to the break, and then we'll come back for the answer. One in which number? 4, 7, or 10 adults in America experience mental illness in a given year?
4.
Wait, you broke the rules.
Oh.
You're not supposed to answer yet.
See what I've been putting up with all these years?
Can I ask my trivia question then?
Yes, you can ask your trivia
Her
question.
face is red.
Okay. Who is Rudd Weatherwax?
All right, we're going to go to our midpoint identifier because Deb Danger, our engineer, is yelling at me right now. This is WMPG 90.9 and 104.1 FM Community Radio of Southern Maine and Eastern New Hampshire. Today we have Dennis King, President of Maine Behavioral Health Care. And do I have to mention Ann?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Ann Pringle, who's a former trustee.
As of yesterday.
As of yesterday. All right, I have no idea what your trivia question answer is.
Do you want me to give it now?
Sure.
Lassie's trainer.
Lassie.
My
And
heavens,
you know
you're
how I know
absolute-
that? Because when Lassie was on TV, when they got to the credits and they had said Lassie's trainer is Rudd Weatherwax, Lassie lifted her paw.
Well, let's be serious here for a second and go back to
Should
my
we, should
my
we explain,
trivia
Should
question.
we explain who Lassie is for our readers who are under 55?
Well, probably. Go ahead, Dennis.
That's a dog. I don't know. That's all. I can't remember.
And the answer to my trivia question, which I thought had some meaning, you got right, was
Yeah.
1 in 4 Americans experience mental illness in a given year. So I don't know if you know Jim Phipps.
Oh, I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
indeed. Very
So
well.
Right.
We asked him, his trivia question was the name of the first seeing eye dog.
Did he know the answer?
No.
Oh, jeez. Yes, Jim. Great
So
guy.
you also had a great program opening a week or so ago, if I remember correctly.
It's coming up next
It's
week.
coming up next week. And that program is what?
It's a Center for Autism and Developmental Disabilities.
And what will that be doing?
It is, well, first of all, it's funded in part by Judy Glickman and the Alphon Foundation.
Great combination.
Yeah, it's terrific, and they saw a need to support us in developing a day program for kids who have both co-occurring developmental disabilities issues as well as serious mental health issues. Many of these kids go back home and do not have access to a day program, but need a little bit of transition between when they are hospitalized. For example, we have a unit at Spring Harbor Hospital for these kids, and it gives the parents an opportunity to get a break, but also for the children to receive training at that facility. It's also going to have a consultation service for other parts of the state, and that part is we're joined by the Irvin Center in Waterville, part of Maine General Hospital, and so we're going to have that as well as office space for Dr. Matt Siegel, who's the lead physician in that program. So we're very excited about it.
So one of the things that I don't think a lot of people grasp, and it took me a while, that just because someone has autism or a developmental disability doesn't mean that they couldn't have mental health issues
Correct.
on top of that.
Correct.
And so this program will address both of those, which a lot of the traditional day programs or support programs out there do not.
That's correct. And it's important to keep in mind that in terms of inpatient treatment, Spring Harbor is only one of 9 hospitals across the country that provides this service. So it's not it's a very busy service. We're lucky to have it in Maine because it's a very, very, very difficult program to operate.
And I'm going to ask you a numbers question again. I apologize, but there's approximately 20,000 adults in the state of Maine who live with developmental disabilities.
Adults, yeah.
Right. So how many would you say folk would have a mental health issue on top of that? So we just so the listeners have a perspective of the numbers that we're possibly talking about.
You know, I'll bet it isn't a whole lot different than the persons without developmental disabilities, but I don't know the answer specifically to that question. You know,
So
it's
maybe
probably
1 in 4?
It could be.
Huh.
I mean, when you
That's a
think about it.
significant number.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Some live very well, just like, some can live very successful in the community without much intervention, a little bit here and there. Some are on the more serious,
Right.
more seriously impacted by mental illness.
So how many folks or clients do you think you're going to start out with?
Well, we'll start slow. I mean, we'll have 10, a place for 10 starting right up, and the outpatient will be what will grow quickly. And the consultation service will pick up a number of people, again, in other parts of the state.
Right. So the consultation service, is that with just the individuals or their families?
It's all of the above. In
Okay.
terms of individual schools, we work very, very closely with returning schools, and most of the kids that we have on the inpatient unit now go back to live with parents.
Okay.
So this gives those parents an extra measure of support. If they live within an hour of Portland, we'll say it gives them an extra measure of support to bring their child home earlier than you might expect.
And can you do teleconferencing too?
Yes, we'll
Yeah.
be able to do that. Yeah, we do that to a certain degree now from the hospital, but this would be from the day
Right.
program.
Okay, so you'd be able to do teleconferencing to a professional or family
Yeah,
in rural Maine that may not necessarily be able to get there.
yeah. We actually do some by phone right now, but teleconference is a little bit more robust and helpful.
Wow. So when you did this consolidation, what was the biggest aha moment that you had?
What would you think, Ann? I'd say the biggest aha moment.
I think it was that chart of that woman's
Yeah,
experience
it was.
because when
It
people
was.
said
It
that,
was.
it just everything fell aside. You know,
Yeah.
we've got to do something about this. And how can we manage better service if we don't consolidate?
Yeah,
And
you're absolutely. That was precisely it, because when you unroll this thing that was 15 feet long, you can't believe that somebody would have had 8 diagnoses in a year and
Right.
a half.
yeah,
And this, by the way, was just in our system.
right.
There is nothing to say that this person couldn't have been out with other providers
Right.
doing the same thing. So when you consider the duplication of effort, when you consider the different standards of care and everything, it can be kind of a nightmare when you think about it.
So again, that question I asked at every meeting: are you the steward of the community asset, the organization, or the service? When you see this chart, you say,
Right.
we're doing something wrong if our service is this fragmented. And we've got to change our organization to better serve the clients.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go off air for a second. And what I'd like you to do is tell me off air, and nobody in the listener world will be hearing this answer. What do you feel you missed? If you had to go back, so other nonprofits can pick up, and because they're all going through, many of them
Yes,
are going through
yes,
this
they are.
discussion. What advice would you give a nonprofit when they begin this?
That's good. Oh, do you want to do an off air?
No, we're on air. I was
Oh,
just,
it's just
we don't go
I
off
was
air
gonna
for a
say-
half an hour.
I was gonna say, what would I say? Because
I wanted you to feel comfortable with
Yeah,
your answer.
no. We've said this. We've talked about this publicly.
Yeah, I don't. This sounds awful. I don't think we missed anything because we had some people that asked really tough questions, and we listened to them. We heard them. We
Yes,
said
that's
we're
true.
going to go back at that. We're going to listen to it again, and the people that asked those tough questions ultimately voted in support of this.
Right. Yes, that's true. It was a virtually unanimous vote,
Yeah.
I think, with one exception.
One exception
The-
out
the
of
whole-
45 trustees.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
So, what advice would you give organizations if they want to begin exploring this?
Well, I think, I pick up on some of the things that we did right, which I think was giving it plenty of time. Just give it time.
Yeah.
Be wide open in your discussions. There's no, be inclusive in your planning. Like Ann's committee was very inclusive. We try to get the people who are the biggest skeptics to ask the questions, because skeptics are great to have when you're on a
Right.
board. I think that was a successful strategy. There are some things that didn't go quite as well as we'd like. I mean, the merging of benefits, for example, is always a little tricky because it takes time, and some
Right.
people get anxious about it naturally. As
The
anybody
staff
would.
benefits.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And things like that. Although we got through it, we had the help of Maine Health, which is our parent, and they've been through this a few times, so they could be helpful. But and communications is a big thing. I think
Yeah, I was
we
gonna-
could always have done better with
Right.
communications.
With the staff, they knew something was going on, but we shared something, but maybe we should have shared more, so the anxiety level was.
Yeah, in fact,
Minimized.
we've measured the staff engagement, so to speak, before and after to determine what we could have done better, and it was on recognition and communications were the two issues.
I'm assuming you have a fairly robust development program.
We do. Yeah. Now that's another thing, because when you're dealing with 5 different organizations, they all have different contacts. There's some overlap, and many have different contacts. You got to make sure you keep those contacts up. So there's room for improvement in that area.
Did you find that some donors were resistant to the consolidation based on their being loyal to
Committed to an organization versus,
I'm sure there was a little bit of that, but in fact, our donations have gone up quite a bit. The foundations were quite impressed with it.
And I think probably what was key to that is that the people in the organizations were supportive of the process we went through in the conclusion, and they were able to sell to those donors that this was in the best interest, again, of the clients served.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And if someone wanted to make a donation, well, before that, why should they donate to you?
Well, I think what's been appealing to the new donors that we've got is their appeal to they find it appealing that we've streamlined operations, not just try to minimize the administration aspect of it. We don't have a bunch of executive directors and a bunch of CFOs. We've streamlined that sort of thing, but also people are convinced that coming together in a field that's very, very siloed, typically very difficult to access, that's a very appealing ask to people, appealing.
One thing I would say, you mentioned the prevalence of mental illness, 1 in 4 people, which is unbelievable. It's like cancer or heart disease right up there.
Right.
And so what we're doing, and I think this is exciting, we're not only healing people when they're in crisis in the hospital, but supporting them to live a life just like anybody else in the community.
Important point.
And in my involvement with people living with mental illness, I heard it time and time again, I just want to be like anybody else.
Right.
Which is a really...
That's a common theme that we're picking up on the show, where the
Right.
clients say, I just want to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
And they need a little help, and they need some counseling, they need to learn some tools to support their health in the community, and that I think that's one of the most important things we're doing.
And P.S., they need a friend.
Right.
And a friend can offer a lot more
Right.
than a professional can in some respects.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to make a donation just because they want to, or they want to contact you, or maybe they know somebody who needs services, how would they do that?
They can do that at Maine Behavioral Health Care is our name, and it's at 78 Atlantic Avenue in South Portland, SoPo.
SoPo. Phone number?
My phone number is 761-2202. I can connect you to the right party.
You have the connections. Do you have any questions for me? I've been asking you a lot of questions.
Well, you've done a lot of work with nonprofits. What do you think of our organization based on what you've heard? How do we stack up?
I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah.
Okay, and what I'm hearing on the street about the consolidation, and it was an emotional issue for some of the agencies, but and I also know folks who are in the mental health profession themselves, so I'm hearing a lot of good things about it. And again, your trustees, if there was a group of people who could make this happen, you have those folks, or at least the folks on the website.
Well, I think Dennis is getting calls from throughout the country because they know we've done this, and this is unique. So they're saying, how did you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you had to tell our listeners one special thing about the organization, and let's do it from a trustee point of view and then from the president's point of view, what would that be?
As I've said, I think it's the engagement of the trustees with the staff in improving services, that it's a real collaboration. And I think that's what a successful nonprofit fosters. And, we're living it. We foster it, we live it.
And I think it's also, and something that we're working on, by the way, we and it's a constant effort. You have to support good people. You have to provide an environment that good people can do their work, and be concerned about the core mission of the organization. That's to take care and help with the recovery of folks with mental illness.
And when good people can do their work, that means that the clients usually benefit that
That's right.
in the long term.
Precisely.
Well, good. I think that was a great show. Thank you for being here today.
Well, we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Enjoyed the discussion.
You're a great interviewer, by the way.
Well, thank you. But I apologize for all the confusion at the beginning. I mean, there's wires everywhere today, and usually we have this down pat, but we did it. So next week, we have Kathy Young on the show, and Kathy Young is the Executive Director of the Cancer Community Center. The music appears by courtesy of Mike Hubbard. You can find it on www.michaelhubbardmusic.com. Check out Mike's website to see where he's playing this weekend. Thanks to Deb Danger, Nonprofit Insider's executive engineer. You can catch Deb on Morning Street Fridays at 6:30 a.m. and she had a great show this morning. If you know of a nonprofit that should be on the show, please email me at nonprofitinsider@davidunger.net. And past shows are archived at www.tcmgr.com, Nonprofit Insider tab.
Don't forget to stay tuned for Zvuki Rusi in 1 minute, and we'll see you at the MPG record sale tomorrow.